Theodore is my most loyal little follower. He takes on all matters, big and small, without complaint. He is incredibly well-behaved and sensible. As time passed, I developed many indescribable thoughts about this little sidekick. Theodore's hair is fluffy. I want to touch it. Theodore's lips are rosy. I want to nibble on them. Later, I took advantage of being drunk and pinned Theodore on the bed, propping up on my arms to coax him. Don't you want to learn how to fight? Kiss me once, and Big Brother will teach you. Theodore blushed and asked in a low voice, if I learn, can Big Brother reward me? I was confused. Suddenly, I was reversed and pinned down by a standard grappling move. Theodore pressed his lips against my ear, his hand moving to the lower part of my lower back. His voice muffled, it's really perky. I really want to try. Get your waist in position. Spread your legs. I stood on one foot with the other dragging on the ground, sitting sideways on the edge of the billiard table, and tilted my head to instruct the boy beside me on the posture of holding the cue. This position is not very comfortable. The wooden edge of the table is raised and not flush with the playing surface. Sitting on it is a bit hard. The shorts right up, and when my legs are directly pressed against it, it pinches the flesh. But from this high vantage point, it's a wonderful sight. The collar of the clothes Theodore is wearing today is a bit large. When he bends over and leans towards the cue, his t-shirt sags down, revealing his sexy, sunken collarbone. Maybe the ceiling lights in the billiards room are too bright, making his already clear, glassy eyes even more dazzling. He stares obliquely at my thigh pressed against the table surface. Silent, his gaze almost burns my exposed skin. I smile and say, didn't you pester me to teach you how to play billiards? Look at the ball. Why are you looking at me? Can I make the ball go into the hole for you? Brother, Theodore seems to have thought of something. When he calls out, his face suddenly flushes red. His handsome face is like it's dyed with a rosy glow. He hurriedly averts his gaze. TSK? He can't take a joke. It makes one's heart itch. I prop myself up on the table and stand up, then move closer to him. Your posture is wrong. Let me teach you. I press on Theodore's shoulder blades and gently push down. Your side chest should be close to the cue. Understand, I deliberately get close to his ear. The distance is so close that I can clearly see the fine hairs on his cheeks. Got it. Brother, I was still admiring the handsome face in front of me on my own, not noticing what Theodore was doing with his hands. Thud, the cue stick slid forward along the tiger's mouth, and the ball rolled into the net. It's in. Theodore suddenly turned his head, his pupils shining brightly. Like a puppy seeking praise, a moist and soft touch passed across my face. I was stunned. The culprit was completely unaware and obviously still immersed in the previous shot. I felt a kind of pent-up frustration, like someone who tried to take advantage but got the short end of the stick instead. An innocent act that made one's blood boil. You practice on your own first. I'll go have a smoke. I took a deep breath, turned around and left, not noticing the person behind me licking his lips and his eyes instantly becoming obsessed and affectionate. The restroom is next to the smoking room. I wiped my face haphazardly before going back to the smoking room. Standing by the window, I took out a cigarette, but the place where Theodore's lips had accidentally touched felt like it had been branded with a hot mark. It burned all the way to my heart. It was swelling, sweet and a bit sour. Stroking my restless chest, I confirmed again. I really fell in love with Theodore. This little brother who has stuck to me since our first meeting and has been eager to learn how to fight for me. I got to know Theodore during the summer vacation of my freshman year. I got off work late from my part-time job at Hadaleo and had to walk through a narrow alley to get back to school. A tall and lanky young man was surrounded menacingly by a bunch of people. Boss, it's this pretty boy who seduced our sister-in-law. In the anonymous text message I received, it was this guy that our sister-in-law gave the little cake to. To be honest, I'm not the kind of person who likes to meddle in other people's business. It sounded like just some boring love disputes. Moreover, I was holding half a watermelon given by the shopkeeper in my hand. It had red flesh, plenty of juice, and was very sweet. I couldn't free my hands. I walked by without changing my expression, but I always felt a pair of eyes following me closely, which annoyed me. I turned my head and accidentally met a pair of slightly round and clear eyes. They were just like those of the stray cat I met at the hospital gate on the day my mother left. So pitiful. I stopped under the only streetlight in the alley and licked my back teeth. The young man was cornered, and a stream of blood was trickling down from his bright red lips. Well, I couldn't eat the watermelon now. I strolled over behind the tattooed man who was leading the group and smashed the watermelon, still in the plastic bag, onto his red-haired head. The watermelon was smashed into pieces all over the ground. Idiot! Are you here to pick a fight with others because of the cake your girlfriend gave you? The tattooed man was stunned by the blow and shouted for his minions to come and beat me up. Who the hell are you? Are you two big men still playing the hero saving the beauty here? I gave a cold snort and looked down at him with my eyes lowered. Yes, I'm the 186-centimeter tall green onion from Shandong. I'm a head taller than you. In the end, the tattooed man and his gang left limping and bruised. There was no way. Their mediocre skills were really not worth mentioning in front of me. I'm James, known as the school bully of a university. I used to fight in illegal underground boxing matches. I've fought more than those guys will in their whole lives. I felt sorry for the watermelon on the ground for a second and walked towards the boy leaning against the wall. He had a high, bridged nose and bright, deep-set eyes. He was really good looking. I let out a short whistle. Hey, beauty, do you have any cash on you? The young man was stunned. Then he realized what I meant by the hero saving the beauty, and blushed. He really rummaged through his pocket and took out 100 yuan and handed it to me. Is it enough? I didn't bring much cash. If it's not enough, I'll add you on WeChat and transfer the rest to you. I raised my eyebrows. Don't you even ask what I'm going to do with it? You saved me. You can have as much as you want. You're quite bold. Would you give me $1 million if I asked? The young man hesitated for a moment, then nodded, with an inexplicably intense and sincere look in his eyes. Yes, I'll give it. His black hair was fluffy, looking extremely well behaved. He's better than that stray cat. I fed it ham sausage, but it bit my hand instead. It's just a little kitten, yet it acts like a dog biting the hand that feeds it. Just kidding. You can pay me 20 for the watermelon, and add me on WeChat to pay back the rest. The boy hesitated for a moment, as if he wanted to refuse, then lowered his head and said okay with a soft laugh. There was an obvious dimple on his cheek. Strange. I always feel that the dimple seems to be able to ooze sweet wine, perhaps even sweeter than the watermelon I didn't get to eat. It's a pity that I didn't know at that time that Theodore isn't just any ordinary cat. He's really a dog. Brother, why aren't you lighting a cigarette? That familiar, clear and mellow voice. I came back to my senses. I guess I stayed in the smoking room for too long, so Theodore came to find me from the billiards hall. The lighting in the room was poor, and his tall and slender figure stood in the shadows. On the face I was used to seeing, the outline was now traced with an unfamiliar sharpness and handsomeness. But the way he crisply called me brother remained unchanged. Since we met that time, Theodore has been clinging to me. It turned out that he was also from university, in the same grade as me, but 1 year younger. A top student in the finance department. He would bring me snacks and drinks and show his concern. A genius who was quite shy and cold in front of others was extremely attentive in front of me. He kept saying that he wanted to repay the favor and insisted on learning how to fight from me. He said that by learning self-defense skills, he wouldn't be bullied like before. Brother, please practice with me. I only accepted the cake to avoid embarrassing the girl in public, and I've returned it later. Who would have thought I'd be so unlucky and encounter such an undeserved disaster? I glanced at him and said, many students at University A are afraid of me. They say I've been getting into fights with a bloody face since high school. Aren't you afraid? Theodore just frowned and asked me worriedly. Brother, didn't you feel pain at that time? I felt a soft and warm feeling in my heart. Indescribable. I couldn't resist him, so I let him stay by my side, occupying my life and my sight. Teaching self-defense skills inevitably involves close contact. His smooth waistline, beautiful shoulder and neck muscles, and the boy's burning body temperature. I've touched him, hugged him, and rolled and collided with him vigorously. As I taught him, I gave my heart away. Theodore walked over from the shadows with his long legs, and that sharp coldness disappeared. Brother, is the lighter broken? I've brought one. I held a cigarette between my lips and didn't say a word. Out of the corner of my eye, I greedily traced his eyebrows and eyes. I thought to myself, your brother's lighter isn't broken. It's that he's up to no good in his belly. He wants to win you, his little follower, over. I crooked my finger, half biting the cigarette, and said in a muffled voice, come here and light my cigarette. Theodore obediently bent down. The orange flame licked the cigarette paper and a cluster of firelight emerged. The lighter was closed, and I held onto his shoulder, not letting him leave. I blew a thin veil of white mist onto Theodore's face. I stared directly at his rosy lips. The peaks of his lips were upturned, and the shape was beautiful. I'd already kissed him countless times in my mind, but still pretended to be proper on the lips. You don't even know how to smoke. Why do you bring a lighter? Do you want to learn this too? Theodore's Adam's apple suddenly wriggled twice and rolled. His voice was hoarse. It's all my fault. I'm so malicious. I guess he was choked by the cigarette just now. he said in a deep voice. Then will you teach me, brother? I smiled and gently patted his face before pushing him away. Just kidding. I won't teach you this. It's not a good thing. Theodore murmured something in a hoarse voice. I didn't catch it clearly and then he fell silent. There was no one else in the smoking room. The atmosphere fell into silence. I smoked in silence, and he waited silently for me to finish the cigarette between my fingers. We just stared into each other's eyes. Our gazes seemed to entangle in the air, like a lingering and exhausting tug of war. It was like the back of a dull knife pressing against the heart, grinding inch by inch. It didn't hurt, but it made one tingle. For a moment, Theodore's eyes became dark and obscure. Maybe it was just an illusion caused by the hazy smoke. He was the first to look away. I curled my lips and stubbed out the cigarette. For the first time, I was glad that I had inherited my mother's fair skin and good looks. At the boxing ring, my opponent mocked me for being better off working as a gigolo to make money faster. But in the game of love, who doesn't like a good-looking face? I thought the prey was about to take the bait. However, I overlooked one thing. It was a long time later that I understood a truth. Sometimes, the real hunter often appears in the form of the prey. The billiards hall is a bit far from University A. By the time I got back to the dorm after dinner, it was already dark. The sound of water in the bathroom was trickling. Theodore is taking a shower. I don't know what's going on tonight. He's been in the bathroom for an unusually long time. I got out of bed and walked to the bathroom door and knocked. Theodore, are you okay? Why are you taking such a long shower? Brother, I'll be out soon. Through the door and the sound of water. Theodore's voice was a bit intermittent and muffled. It wasn't as clear and pleasant as usual. It was sticky and greasy, with a faint, sexy allure at the end of the sound. After a while, Theodore finally pushed the door open and came out. His eyes were slightly red at the corners, and his face was also pink. For some reason, he just kept his eyelashes down and didn't dare to look at me. You go take a shower, brother. I was uncomfortable with the sweat on me. Without thinking too much, I nodded and went in. The window in the bathroom was open, and there was no trace of the humid heat from the steam. The room was filled with a strong lavender scent. It was the aromatherapy that Theodore bought on the way tonight and placed in front of the mirror. As I walked in while taking off my pants, I couldn't help but sigh. How particular. Such a delicate aromatherapy is actually placed in the toilet. Without paying attention, I slipped. I staggered forward. I quickly spread my legs into a lunge and barely managed to prop my elbows against the edge of the sink. My bones are aching from the impact. The pain came so suddenly that I couldn't help crying out. Brother, what's wrong with you? Theodore almost instantly turned the doorknob and rushed in. One leg of my pants was off and hanging on the ground, while the other was loosely slipped to the back of my knee. Half hanging, I arched my back and stuck out my butt to keep my arms balanced. My image was really not very elegant. I turned my back to Theodore and looked up at the mirror in front of me. In the mirror, the young man stood still for a while before waking up like from a dream and hurriedly came to support me. After I stood steady, I caught a glimpse of his red-rimmed eyes, which were even more flushed than when he just finished taking a shower. I patted his shoulder and comforted him. Don't panic. It's just a minor bruise. I haven't even cried from the pain. But why do you look like you're about to cry? The body under my hand stiffened. Theodore tightened his lips and gently led me to the bed as if I were a precious porcelain. He took out the ointment from the medicine box in the cabinet and carefully applied it to the place where I got hurt. He gently blew on it with his lips. This injury was nothing serious to me, but Theodore looked extremely concerned as if facing a great enemy. My heart softened like a lump of cotton. He applied the ointment very slowly, and his fingertips rubbed gently. It was more of a tingling sensation than pain. It was a bit unbearable. I helplessly moved Theodore's hand away and teased him. Stop fooling around with your brother. Come on quickly. Theodore's fingers paused, and his face flushed again. I gave him a suspicious look. Could this kid have some kind of illness? He blushes at the slightest thing. I urged, hurry up and apply the medicine. Go back to sleep after you're done. Got it, bro? His voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzz. Lying in bed, fatigue washed over me. Theodore went to the bathroom to wash his hands. The sound of the water grew louder, and he didn't come out for a long time. I yawned and shouted inside, Theodore, why are you taking a shower again? It took a long time before I heard a reply. It's hot. Go to sleep first. Bro. I glanced at the air conditioner temperature in puzzlement. 22 degrees Celsius. Is it really that hot? When I woke up in the morning, there were a few more messages in WeChat. Class monitor Charlotte. Classmate James, can I invite you to dinner tonight? I heard about what happened last time from my uncle. I want to thank you in person. It took me a moment to realize that Charlotte was talking about Henry. A week ago, Theodore and I lived in a 4-person dormitory in the south area of the school. He lived next to me. At that time, there were rumors that there was a peeping Tom in the women's restroom of Mingda teaching building. Someone heard the sound of a camera shutter, but the person flashed by too quickly and was wearing a mask and a hat. It was a blind spot for surveillance nearby, and the person disappeared in a flash. Later, when I accidentally returned to the dormitory, I inadvertently found my roommate Henry looking through those photos on his phone. I really laid into him that time. When the other 2 roommates came back, Henry was crying and howling, with blood dripping from the corner of his mouth, lying on the ground. Later, Henry was investigated by the police and expelled from school. The specific reason was not made public. The principal is Charlotte's uncle. One of the girls who was secretly photographed is her. The WeChat messages are still ringing. Classmate James, they all said that you were dragging that scumbag that day, with blood on your hands. You were really terrifying. But I heard from my uncle that it was you who first told him not to publicize it. Otherwise the girls would be gossiped about. I think you are very different from the rumors. Brother, you're awake. I bought breakfast. Theodore came back with the Chinese crepes I like to eat. I was sitting on the edge of the bed holding my phone and subconsciously switched screens to exit WeChat. The screen was still on and I didn't have time to lock it. WeChat just popped up another message hanging at the top. So, can I ask you out for a meal? The air pressure in the room suddenly dropped. It was chilly. Theodore saw the WeChat message but didn't say anything. He only said that my right hand was injured and that he would help me shave if I went out. He applied a circle of shaving foam. I leaned against the sink, looking at his eyebrows and eyes that were so close. He looked cold when not smiling, and when he smiled, his eyes were like full of stars. He was extremely dazzling. The razor buzzed in the silent bathroom, with such a handsome man in front of me. I was being naughty and deliberately leaned back. Theodore had no choice but to get closer and closer. Just when I was about to say some flirtatious words triumphantly, my chin was pinched by a warm palm and slightly lifted. His tone rarely had a bit of command. Brother, don't move. I haven't finished shaving yet. I forced a smile and said, oh. I closed my eyes and enjoyed the service. His hot breath sprayed on my face. He shaved slowly and gently. I vaguely felt that it was like a hunter making a patient and gentle arrest. The morning light shines in just in time. I squint comfortably, ignoring that strange thought. Brother is so good. Theodore whispers softly. What? It's nothing. I just want to ask who brother is going to have dinner with. No one. I'm not going to accept the invitation. Really? The electric shaver is turned off. I open my eyes. Theodore's eyes are upturned at the corners, and his pupils are moist. I can't help but reach out and ruffle his fluffy hair. Really, I recall the evaluations of me on campus during that time. They said that, as the rumors among high school classmates had it, I went to school every day with injuries from fights. I beat people extremely hard. Undoubtedly, I was a school bully. At that time, I asked Theodore, aren't you curious about what happened between me and that Henry? As always, he was firm. Brother, I know you're not that kind of person. You must have your reasons for not saying something. If you don't say, I won't ask. It's never too late to tell me when you want to. Brother, I knew then. I was done for. The sound of my heart fluttering was so loud that everything around me seemed like a fantasy. Only Theodore standing in front of me was so real. There was only one thought in my head. I'll get this guy even if I have to go to great lengths. I declined Charlotte's invitation. I punched Henry just because I wanted to, not for anyone's gratitude. I never care about others' opinions. After all, those who care about you will never be affected by others' judgments. But the principal made the decision on his own and helped me change to a better double-room dormitory for international students in the north area. As a reward, I originally disagreed. The south area is too far from the north area, and it's also far from Theodore's dormitory. Who would have known that Theodore told me the next day that he had also successfully applied to change his international student dormitory because of his big prize in the competition and excellent overall grades. Only then did I happily move into the double-room world with him. The double-room dormitory has good sound insulation and excellent hardware facilities. Coincidentally, I know the person living next door, Mateo from the school basketball team. He once pulled me to play basketball with him a few times because they were short of players. He is one of the few friends in school I can have a chat with. The other day, I saw him come back dejected with a swollen lip. I thought he was in a relationship with some girl. Unexpectedly, he actually won over Lucas, the most difficult to pursue guy at University A. I can feel that Theodore is not completely unmoved by me. We just need a catalyst to add fuel to the fire of this almost boiling water and make it boil completely. Mateo looks stupid, but he's quite passionate when it comes to love. He's a promising young man. I have to learn from him. Let's do it right away. While Theodore has a full schedule these days and Lucas is not in the dormitory, I went to find Mateo. It took me a long time to knock before the door opened from the inside. What do you want from me? Mateo walked in a strange way and kept rubbing his waist from time to time. His tone didn't sound good either. I asked in confusion, "Did you eat dynamite? Why are you so angry?" Mateo sat on the stool, grimacing and hissing in pain. "Did you get injured while playing basketball recently? Didn't your boyfriend give you a massage?" I teased him maliciously. Mateo's face turned green and then white. "Just say what you want to say." His throat was also a bit hoarse, as if he had overused it. I touched my nose and straightened my expression. "Come on. We're brothers on the court. How did you chase your wife? Give me some tips, bro." Mateo sized me up and said thoughtfully, "Who are you chasing?" "Theodore. Is it that obvious?" Mateo let out a strange laugh, his meaning unclear. "All right, then I'll teach you a few tricks. I'll send you the secret manual on your phone. I guarantee you'll succeed immediately." I can't tell why, but this guy seems a bit strange after falling in love. There was still a sinister smile on his face. I rubbed the goosebumps on my body and shook off the strange thoughts. Days passed by day after day. The wound on my arm had almost healed. Mateo only said one proverb at that time: "Wine emboldens the timid," and people tell the truth after drinking. I understood immediately and teased him on WeChat. "Did you just get Lucas after getting drunk?" Mateo, hee. Yes/smiling emoji. Wow, what the heck? He's being so sarcastic. Fortunately, this guy is really sincere to his brothers. He sent me a lot of dressing up tips on my phone. He said he wanted to share all his knowledge with me. His wife likes these things. I scrolled through the pictures sent by Mateo on my phone, frowning tightly. Black stockings? Fishnet stockings? Leg rings? What strange things are these? Me. Are you sure you're not adding your own preferences? Aren't these things you forced your wife to wear for you? Mateo. Smiling JPG. Okay. Getting angry. I was chatting intensively with Mateo when suddenly a backpack was placed on the desk next to me. I quickly turned off the screen. "Ah, Theodore, you're here." The hasty actions were a bit self-defeating in trying to cover up. I don't know if he saw those strange photos. He and I have different majors, but we've chosen the same elective course. Theodore has very long eyelashes. When they droop, they cast a crescent-shaped shadow. His voice was a bit cold. "Brother, have you made new friends recently? You've been staring at your phone every day." I forced out a couple of laughs. "Haha. It's nothing. There are just too many promotional messages." "Really?" Yes. I can't just say that I'm scheming on how to have you all to myself." I turned my head away, not daring to look into Theodore's eyes that were as clear as if washed by water. They were so clear and bright that it seemed all my thoughts could be seen through. Thud. Theodore pulled out the book from his backpack and placed it heavily on the table, making a dull sound. "Sorry, my hand cramped," Theodore explained, his voice also dull. He had just participated in a school-level debate competition a while ago. He probably strained his throat. I thought to myself that I should buy him some throat lozenges when I had time. Mateo went crazy and shared a bunch of inappropriate outfits with me. "Mateo, just wear that one without a bra. It'll definitely work." Me, "Get lost. It won't work at all." I suspect he's holding a grudge against me for laughing at him and his sister hiding in the grove. He always teaches useless flirting skills. I rummaged for a long time before choosing a set of clothes that didn't look too outrageous. I placed an order for the clothes and accessories, and they arrived in a couple of days. Everything was ready. I pretended to be drunk at the class dinner and sent a message asking Theodore to take me back to the dormitory. Actually, I didn't drink much. I just blush easily after drinking. Even a little alcohol would make my face and neck turn crimson. I slumped in Theodore's arms, snuggling against him bonelessly. I also put my hands on his lean waist to take advantage. The breath beside my ear became a bit hotter. I broke out in a sweat when I got back to the dormitory. I pretended to be drunk and mumbled, circling Theodore's neck. "Theodore, I want to eat the grilled sausages from the supermarket downstairs." He advised me. "It's very late." "Brother, you're drunk." I insisted. "No, I just want to eat. You go and buy them for me." As soon as he went out, I quickly took out clothes from the cabinet and changed into them. A tight-fitting gray short t-shirt and a suit cuff was directly put on my bare upper arm. Black suit trousers were fastened with a leather belt, and a single-sided suspender chain passed through the buckle and was tightened on my chest. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror. Usually I dress in a loose and casual style. I've never tried this kind of look before. I always feel restricted. I don't know if Theodore will like it. He seems to be in a bad mood recently. He always warns me in a cold tone that often looking at the phone affects my eyesight. I originally wanted to drink a glass of water to relieve the upcoming nervousness. Unexpectedly, my hand shook, and most of the glass of water flowed down my neck to my chest. A patch of the t-shirt got wet and stuck to my body, and the gray fabric was especially noticeable. The door suddenly opened. Brother, there really aren't any grilled sausages. I brought you orange juice. As he said that, the bottle of drink slipped out of his hand and fell to the ground. Perhaps the faint alcohol really brought a bit of drunkenness. In the criss-crossing light and shadow, Theodore's eyes were pitch black. There was a burning flame leaping in them. He suddenly remembered the Tibetan mastiff raised by the neighbor when he was a child, the kind that had been hungry for several days. He suddenly closed the door. His breathing was uneven. His sexy and prominent Adam's apple rolled with difficulty. When he opened his mouth, his voice was extremely hoarse. Brother, what are you doing? I didn't care about the wet traces on my chest. The important thing was the main business. I waved my hand and squinted to signal Theodore to come over. He strode forward with his long legs, his eyes heavy. Every step seemed as heavy as 1,000 caddies. The moment Theodore approached, I grabbed his collar and, taking him by surprise, pushed him onto the bed behind me. I bent my elbow and pressed it against his throat, locking him firmly. How about it? Haven't you learned this move? Theodore let out a low His Adam's apple rubbed against my elbow, and his eyes instantly turned red. Do you want to learn? I lay on his ear and coaxed him. Kiss me, and Big Brother will teach you all the tricks he hasn't taught you yet. I loosened some of my strength so that he could speak freely. Theodore's lips trembled slightly, hesitatingly saying, Is Big Brother talking nonsense when drunk? I stroked the stray hair on his temple and curled my lips. What do you think? The redness instantly spread from the corners of his eyes to his ears. Theodore asked in a low voice, Then if I learn it, can Big Brother reward me? I was confused. A strong arm came from one side, and my arm joint went numb. Immediately afterwards, I was knocked down by his strong legs, and my shoulders and back were flipped and pressed down. My wrists were held tightly. The tiger's mouth of his hand was like handcuffs, holding me tightly and making me unable to move. Half of my face was forced to press against the bedsheet. Different from the throat-locking move I used, it was a standard arrest move. The situation was reversed. I was in a daze. My butt was gently patted twice along the curve. The palm was burning hot. Theodore said vaguely, it's so perky. I want to give it a try. Brother, you don't know. I like you so much. I'm almost going crazy. His fingers pinched my earlobe and rubbed it, with a kind of terrifying infatuation. Brother, it's okay that you flirted with me before. This time, are you really trying to take my life? So, whether what you just said was drunk talk or the truth, you can't escape. Brother, Theodore turned my face and kissed me eagerly and wantonly. He didn't give me the slightest chance to react. When I was completely exhausted, I lay on the edge of the bed, gasping heavily with a dazed look in my eyes. He got out of bed, picked up the orange juice at the door, unscrewed the cap and took a sip. The sweet juice was passed from his lips and teeth. Help you sober up, bro? The sunlight shines in through the window, and I struggle to open my eyes. I'm sore all over, as if I've fallen apart. Just as I want to get out of bed, I stagger, and my waist is firmly held. Are you okay, bro? Theodore, who comes out of the bathroom, rushes over in a hurry and helps me onto the bed. Gritting my teeth, I force a smile and say, Come here. Theodore kneels on the bed on one knee, with the other leg against the edge of the bed, and obediently bends over and gets closer. I slap the deceptive face with a loud sound. Due to lack of physical strength, there was hardly any force at all. It was weak and didn't even leave a mark. Instead, there were still the dense red marks left by this guy on my fingers last night. Theodore wasn't angry after being slapped. He grabbed my wrist and blew on my palm. Brother, did it hurt when you hit? Let me blow on it for you. He was as shameless as could be. There wasn't even a trace of his former obedient and well-behaved appearance. I sneered. You lied to me? You can't fight. I think you know quite a lot. What else are you still hiding? Tell me and let me have a look. Suddenly, someone rubbed my palm with their cheek. Theodore just knelt in front of me, tilting his head and looking up at me from below. From this angle, his eyes looked innocent and pitiful, filled with lingering affection. My heart skipped a beat. He said, I only lied to you about one thing, brother. That is, before you liked me, I was already crazy about you. I turned my head away and stubbornly said, So confident. How do you know I like you? Theodore murmured in a hoarse voice, No. It's self-abasement. I was so self-abased that I dared to be sure only when you didn't push me away last night and let me be presumptuous. I was sure that I wasn't dreaming. Theodore said that he fell in love with me at first sight. At that time, I was still fighting illegal boxing in an underground boxing gym because of my mother's medical expenses for uremia. He went to find his rebellious younger brother William and happened to see me competing with someone. Brother, you were on the stage at that time, and I was just looking at you from afar below the stage. For the first time, I realized that true heart fluttering only needs one glance. Later, I inquired for a long time before I found out your college entrance examination application and got into the same school as you. I finally had an excuse to learn fighting to get close to you. It's like a dream. The more I got along with you, the more I liked you. When you were sitting on the billiard table, I used all my self-control in my life to hold back from pushing you down on the table. And when brother fell in the bathroom, stop. Don't say any more. The topic was getting more and more inappropriate. I covered his mouth and quickly stopped him. A slippery feeling came. My palm was licked again, and I quickly withdrew my hand. Theodore looked at me with a raised eyebrow. Okay, I won't say any more, brother. I spat in my heart resentfully, pretending to be obedient and cute, putting on an act, full of nonsense in the head. But there's nothing I can do. It's all my fault for spoiling him. Actually, I could have pushed Theodore away last night. Initially, it was because I was too shocked and weak under the stimulation of alcohol. But that slight drunkenness soon dissipated, and I found that Theodore was still the student I had taught myself. Every move of his carried my style. Only the grappling technique he used to subdue me at the beginning was something I hadn't taught him. But seeing Theodore's indulgent and pious look, I softened my heart and let him have his way. As for what I'm angry about, it's mostly the shame of being subordinate to someone yet inexplicably feeling a sense of pleasure. And I was even forced to shed tears. I clenched my fists. I'm not willing. I firmly grabbed the person in front of me by the neck, bit him as if to vent, and warned, "You wait. One day I'll pay you back. There will come a time when you'll cry and beg me." The process was not satisfactory, but I still confirmed my relationship with Theodore. He is no different from before. He's just more clingy, like a big golden retriever. He also likes to be jealous for no reason. He secretly asked me who I had been chatting with recently. I explained it to him with a mix of amusement and exasperation. And only then did he smile broadly and come over to kiss me affectionately. I'm not stupid. Naturally, I realized what was going on with that kid Mateo. He and I slandered each other and started a mutual teasing mode on WeChat. The troublemaker Mateo, I said I'd guarantee your success. It's none of my business if you misunderstood. Me, you're so mean and petty. The troublemaker Mateo, well, since I've been caught in the rain, of course I'll tear up others' umbrellas. Congratulations. Our school bully finally has his own 188 centimeters big-breasted girl. Me, you're so narrow-minded. Just wait. I'm not like you. Sooner or later, I'll turn things around. The troublemaker Mateo, different fields are like different worlds. I wish you success. Smile. JPG. Before I could implement my counter-attack plan, Theodore suddenly disappeared. He was missing and his phone was off. The counselor said his family had asked for a 1-month leave for him, but the reason was unknown. A boy who resembled Theodore in appearance came to me. Theodore's younger brother, William. He was very different from Theodore. He had a crew cut and a rather dark complexion. There was a hint of arrogance in his eyes and eyebrows. He was wearing a police academy uniform. William folded his arms and sized me up. Are you brother James? I paused. Do you know me? The next second, William looked at me with admiration. Of course. I sneaked into the boxing ring before. It was your match. You were so awesome. And William drawled, his eyes becoming mischievous. My brother's phone is full of your photos. I have to say, sister-in-law, you're really amazing. You managed to make my brother, who has been so proper all his life, come out to our parents face to face. Ignoring his slippery address, I was eager to ask, so how is your brother now? Don't worry, my brother just asked me to tell you that he's okay. All right, I have to go back to school. William glanced at his watch and left in a hurry. I didn't even have time to leave a contact information, and he was out of sight. I felt very uneasy. I remembered the address Theodore had once told me and booked a ticket for the next day. I tossed and turned and couldn't sleep all night. As soon as dawn broke, I packed up and prepared to go out. The moment I opened the door, a familiar person stood in front of me. There was a stubble of beard on his chin, and he looked thinner. The door closed, and I hadn't even said a word. I was pressed against the door and kissed forcefully. Our teeth touched, and our saliva mingled. Theodore buried his head in my neck and said, "Brother, I miss you so much." I ran my fingers through his slightly wet hair. It was drizzling outside today. Recalling what William had said, I roughly understood what was going on. Do your uncle and aunt disagree? He looked up at me, his eyes dark. and said in a very low voice, "If they don't agree, will you, brother, not want me anymore?" Not everyone can accept homosexuality, and it is easily hindered by the secular world. Parents are the most difficult mountain to cross among them. The incomprehension of loved ones often becomes the sharpest blade, turning into an old and incurable illness. I remained silent and saw the young boy's eyes turn red. His teeth unconsciously bit his lips, making his lower lip turn pale. I pressed the back of his head and kissed him back forcefully. "What are you thinking about? The most important thing in a person's life is to live for oneself. Do you understand?" These were the last words my mother said before she passed away. She said, "James, your father passed away early. I made the decision to be a single mother on my own, which made you suffer a lot without enjoying a single day of fatherly love. But in this life, one should not live in the eyes of others. One has to live for one's own heart. Giving up at the first sign of setbacks has never been my James' character." Sometime during that affectionate kiss, the atmosphere changed. Theodore gradually regained the initiative, advancing like an army seizing territory and taking away every breath of mine. Outside the window, the sky was gray and overcast. Raindrops slid down the glass, leaving watermarks. Theodore whispered in my ear about the years of depression and pain. Since childhood, the younger brother has been naughty and unrestrained, and he is determined to become a police detective. Glorious yet dangerous. His parents have argued, scolded, and beaten him. Therefore, as the older brother, he is strongly required to be mature, steady, and follow the rules. He has to follow the path planned by his parents step by step. Obedient, sensible, and polite. Under the torment of the so-called for your own good family affection blade, he is covered in blood and suffers a dull pain. Feeling powerless, he chose the uninteresting major of finance in college. In fact, like his younger brother, he also likes criminal investigation and combat. He learned grappling from his younger brother. Scalding hot tears dripped onto my face. I softened up completely and released my strength. "Stop crying. You can always be a willful younger brother with me." "What?" Theodore's eyes widened in a daze. "Do whatever you want. I'll indulge you and give in to you. Are you happy now?" Facts have proven that being soft-hearted leads to no good end. Being soft-hearted towards men is even more fatal. My face flushed red, but that man's words were so gentle and persuasive, calling out repeatedly, "Brother, yes, brother, yes." His scorching body pressed against mine, and the words he uttered made me tremble with anger. "Brother, I'm not good at playing billiards, but I'm quite good at golf. A hole-in-one. Shut up, darn it. I'm definitely going to block Mateo later." 19. Extra, Theodore. Theodore said he only lied to James about one thing, but that's not entirely true. He also had his own agenda. For example, it was him who sent the anonymous text message to the tattooed guy's subordinate back then. He also deliberately arranged to meet the person in the alley where James passed by during his part-time job. He knew that although that person seemed uninterested in other people's business on the surface, he was actually extremely soft-hearted. Another example is that he could have applied for a double-occupancy dormitory long ago, but he deliberately moved next door to James. It wasn't until James was unexpectedly transferred to a different dormitory by the principal that he finally moved in. He schemed and planned for a long time, just to keep the sweet rain that belonged to him and moisten his heart that had been barren and dry for too long. The first time he saw James, that person had delicate features, was extremely handsome, and his skin was so white that it glowed. He didn't look like someone who could fight at all. When the opponent taunted him, he just smiled faintly and used his actions to make the other person not dare to underestimate him anymore. With the scars mixed with the sliding sweat, he was like a beautiful and wild cheetah, lively, passionate, unrestrained, and willful. He is the kind of person he most envies. Fell in love at first sight. Theodore saw James for the second time in the hospital, a place full of partings and painful wails. The young man's strong muscles seemed to have caved in. He was sitting on the bench, elbows on his knees, looking blank. It is said that he was trying to earn money for his mother's medical expenses, but the woman was at the end of her life and didn't make it. Later, he saw the boy leave the hospital. He fed the ham sausage that was supposed to be his breakfast to a stray cat. The stray cat bit on the wound he got from boxing. Delayed sadness overwhelmed all his thoughts. The young man covered his face, his shoulders and back trembling. "It hurts so much. You heartless cat." Tears kept streaming down through his fingers. Theodore really wanted to hug him, but the young man was a stranger to him. He had no right to do so, so he decided to walk up to that person step by step. The end.